Imagine being set up for a crime that you had no part in, and now you're faced with the death penalty. Your family and friends all know that you're innocent, but there's nothing that they can do about it. Everyone around you is preparing for your wrongly premature death, and 2 days before your execution, you are set free. What an emotional roller coaster that would be. An instance like this is not uncommon, as it happened to an innocent Illinois man who was released exactly 48 hours before his lethal injection due to new DNA evidence found, as reported by Paul Simon, once a member of the U.S. House of Representatives and U.S. Senate. Today I want to explain to you why the death penalty system is poorly administered and needs to be rethought. The death penalty violates the 8th Amendment of our Constitution, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. I know most of you have already heard a dozen speeches on the death penalty, but this is an issue that I am really passionate about and have researched extensively. You may be thinking, oh, well, this doesn't interest me. I live in Orange County and no one around me has any affiliation with crime. But the cost of the death penalty is taken away from your education, your hopes of getting your dream job, or just a job in general, and even a decrease in health care for you and your family. I will be discussing how the death penalty institutes botched injections, extreme costs, racism, and the death of innocent human beings. The death penalty consists of a lethal injection to the veins, which is meant to be painless and kill the individual instantly. In all reality, this is not the case. Prisoners are suffering during this process and even sent back to their cells and rescheduled for a later date if the prison guard is unable to administer the lethal injection properly. In lethal injections, a prisoner is given a 3-drug cocktail. The 3-drug cocktail consists of a sedative to put the prisoner to sleep, and a paralyzing agent to stop him from struggling or breathing, and a drug to stop the person's heart. Botched injections can slow down the time it takes to kill a human being and cause excruciating pain. With shaking hands, an inexperienced prison guard may miss the vein, and if the prisoner was a drug addict, this increases the chance of the prison guard not being able to find the vein. Newsweek reported a case where a Florida man sustained severe burns on his arm, and he told the prison guards that it's not working. This botched injection lasted for almost an hour before he died. If lethal injection isn't considered cruel and unusual, then stoning should be globally accepted as well. Not only is the death penalty a torturous process, but it also wastes millions of dollars that we could use on more fundamental things. Sentencing a prisoner to life in jail with no chance of parole costs 10% of what it costs to put a prisoner through death row. There are currently 670 inmates on death row in the state of California. Per inmate, $90,000 a year is spent on death row in addition to the $34,000 spent for incarceration each year. According to California's Commission on the Fair Administration of Justice, they estimate that California spends $138 million a year on the death penalty. New York cannot even provide bulletproof vests for all of their officers. Letting a prisoner spend the rest of his life in jail would ultimately save the lives of more citizens than it would to put him to death. Our country could be spending this money on building new hospitals or saving the jobs of teachers and other public service workers. It is a shame that the death penalty is still in existence when we could be doing so many more positive things with that money. So we know the death penalty is not painless and is a total waste of our tax dollars. But let's take a last look at how biased the death penalty system really is. We would like to think that the court systems are unbiased and fair, but shocking statistics prove us wrong. Racism is a leading factor in almost all murder cases. The General Accounting Office was asked by Congress to perform a study on race and the death penalty. 82% of the studies show that murderers are more likely to receive lethal injection if they murdered a white person than if they murdered a black person, We all embrace our country's model of equal opportunity, but boasting about this privilege is embarrassing because our court systems show just the opposite. For example, 100% of the people on death row in Kentucky are there for murdering a white person, even though 1,000 blacks have been murdered in that state since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. The court systems need to be more racially diverse. Not only are almost all district attorneys male, but 97.5% of them are all white. It also allows open racism among the jury when the prosecutor refers to a Hispanic defendant as a chili-eating bastard, which happened in a Colorado death penalty case. When all is said and done, racism in the courts still exists, and there is no reason why these people should have the power to take a citizen's life. We need to put a stop to the death penalty due to the harmful effects of botched lethal injections, the money wasted to make a kill for a kill, and racism in the courts that is taking the lives of innocent individuals. Our Constitution was made for a reason, and it is absurd to think that putting a liquid into someone's body that can send a stinging, excruciating pain throughout the body for an extended period of time is not considered cruel and unusual. We could save so much money by abolishing the death penalty sentence and have criminals spend the rest of their life in jail with no chance of parole. A portion of their earnings there in prison could go to pay for some of their incarceration, and a portion could go to a fund that helps victims and their families that have suffered from violent crimes. There are many alternatives that need to be considered before we put the power in someone's hand to take the life of another individual. Abolishing the death penalty will overall help the well-being of everyone in this country.
Jake, what did you think?
She had some good main points. Her organization was very well. Her thesis was content with the information that she gave to us. She did look at the parts a little bit. That was probably just the only flaw that I pretty much heard and saw. She did get some interesting facts about, other things beyond the death penalty, how they can contribute to why, like racism and stuff like that. Her conclusion was good too. She gave a wide range of perspectives of it, and she supported it very well.
Okay. The example that you start with, I think instead of making it a visualization, you want to start with the example. I know it's a little bit of suspense that you're getting there, but the example I think would be more dramatic. You have a very clear statement of what your position is, and there's an outline of what the structure is going to be, so that's pretty solid. The idea about the whether or not it's cruel and unusual, it comes up as a theme in your introduction. It's not really one of the supporting points during the presentation, but it does. It's kind of an underlying argument that you've got in the presentation, and you've got a couple of places where you are making that point when you're talking, for instance, about the painful nature of the death penalty or the possibility of it being applied to somebody inconsistently. I think that's kind of where it fits in. I thought that the argument about lethal injection is described pretty well. You need to know the frequency or how likely those kinds of botched injections occur. You've got some hypotheticals that are being presented, and you've got one particular case, it sounds like, that's being referred to. So I think you've got a good illustration there. The equivocation to stoning, I think, is a little bit dramatic, but it is a nice kind of an emotional appeal from the perspective that you were talking about. So it does have the sense of creating some energy and certainly a point of view that's dramatic on that point. The racism issue, I think, is a little underdeveloped. You've got some good statistics, but you need to tell us why those statistics mean certain things. The fact that the number of prosecutors who are men, the number of prosecutors who are white, what that's got to do with the crimes and whether or not somebody has been prosecuted illegitimately or they've been randomly they've been picked out for prosecution in a discriminatory way. I think that that's not quite as clear there. The evidence that you had earlier on the number of people who were prosecuted because their victims were white, maybe that's a little bit closer to the argument that you've got there. I thought your presentation was pretty solid. There's okay variety and voice sugar.